Kush Sovereignty 2, Black Love Chapter 1, Mamaline. There's a lake that sea in the northwest corner of a town known to Maniatalula, in the state of Louisiana. This lake, which has no name, is fed by many small streams filled with catfish, bass, perch, bream, and crayfish, that many referred to as crawdad. In the southwestern corner of this lake lies 99 acres of land, and the land itself was filled with wildlife, where the local referred to as gouditin. This land also yielded various herb and species that grew wild. The sun surrounding this area was unique and relaxing. However, this lake, this land in this town, had been in this family for centuries and was marked off by a fence with sign that read, "No trespassing." They put this sign up for strangers, for the people in this community knew better. Weeping willows, draped over the lake like an umbrella. A variety of pine, magnolia, and sycamore trees covered the land, a few hammock were strategically placed, where one would just lay down and sleep away their problem, for the smell of lemon balm, thyme, and lavender, which were planted for aromatherapy. This lake, this land, and this lady who owned the land stood 5'2", was a healthy a bull and had the strength of one. One might say she was the town's psychologist, counselor, herbalist, and dealer. She was married for 50 years to her latest husband, Joseph, whom many called Papa Joe. Their marriage was a blissful union, and all saw it a valid symbol of what love and marriage look like. They bore 13 children, all of whom were intelligent and wise. She had the courage of 10 men and the wisdom unknown to anyone nearby. She lived alone now, but was never lonely. People would come from miles to listen to her knowledge, and she had the humor many enjoyed. Before his untimely death, just like his wife, Papa Joe enjoyed helping people. He took two abandoned buildings on their property and renovated them to do just that. Papa Joe built their home in front of two abandoned buildings. These abandoned buildings were once schools centuries ago. Wright Elementary, where he made half of it into a community center and the other half a vegetable and herb garden for his wife, and Reuben McCall High School stood to the left side of their home. The high school had two large doors, which were placed on the south side of the building, where he kept refrigerated equipment for the MEA. Solar panels were mounted on the roof of all the building. The high school's second floor was a processing facility for butchering and curing the MEA. On the north side of the building were plenty of cows, goats, and one enormous fish tank, one could only imagine, and located around the building were plenty of fowl, turkey, duck, and chickens. Wright Elementary also had a few fowl here and there, but it was mostly used for herb, fruit, and vegetable. There were also infused oil, essential oil, and homemade soap. They also added a second story for homeless people who helped around the place. The couple enjoyed teaching and educating the orphan and special need individuals who lived within the area until Papa Joe's death. Shortly after, their children left home to start a family of their own. This same lady started feeding and making ample clothing for many of the needy people in the area. Many of those whom she helped would come and help her with this facility, a sign of appreciation for the unwavering generosity she had shown to them. She always had more help than needed, but never rejected their support. This lake, this land, and this property belong to Kakawaya, which means my eldest, little sister, but everyone called her Mamaline. Being a descendant of White Bear, she too could trace her lineage as far back as the birth of Adam, the first man, and she was proud of that. She spoke 8 different languages, including sign language. Mamaline was a spiritual woman who talked to us about regularly and was often visited by Mlezi, Yael, and Mshika. She had a gift that allowed her to be emotionally linked to individuals. They knew it and loved her for her compassion. She would help people whether she knew you or not, just the tuct of someone being in distress before that tuct was even processed, Manis and Mamalin would be there knocking on your door with food, clothing, or whatever was needed, and then some. One thing about Mamalin, she didn't play when it came to people trying to take advantage of her and her. If you didn't know her, it would have been the only way anyone would dare try it. She was not afraid of death, and knew martial art just as well as any man. She was a hilarious woman and a woman who loved love. One homel man living in her establishment was an old man named Valley from Delhi, Louisiana. He had been there for a few years after his wife died. It was said that they found him wandering the woods in disbelief, confusion, and depression. Mamalin went looking for him one day and found him in a lake fully clothed, logging and shooting at the fish. Valley? Valley. Shouted Mamalin. Kakawaya? Is that you? Valley replied. No, you all fart. I'm a black bear coming to eat your ass now, tell me, what should one in this pond acting like a fool, for? Climbing out of the pond, Mamalin reached out her hand, to help him, if you don't get your ass out of this water. Valley, crying, looked up at Mamalin, my wife used to come here and fish, every so often. Mamalin looked at Valley, baby, your wife has been gone damn near a year now. Valley cried out loudly, how long will he feel this pain? Mamalin smiled, always. How long you loved her, that pain will never go away. Now, you got to snap out of it, and gone on back home. Valley shook his head, no, Kakawaya, he could never go back there. You can have that house, and do as you please with it. The kids are gone, and it's just me now. Mamalin felt his pain, well, he just finished making some extra rooms, out a right elementary, you can stay there, until you are ready. You can stay here in the woods like your ass is John the Baptist. Come on here, cause you smell like two scones, during mating season. Valley immediately moved into right elementary, taking only the cloth on his back and helping Mamalin around the place. He was a very hard worker, and soon he knew everything that had to be done, like clockwork, and has worked there ever since. He took charge of the place whenever Mamalin had to travel. Valley? Valley, shouted Mamalin. Yes ma'am, said Valley. Man, what I done told you about you calling me ma'am? We are the same age, and you got me feeling like I'm much older than you, even though you look twice my age. Now, how many times have I asked you to call me Mamalin or Kakawaya? Valley said. Yes. Valley cocked himself, yes, Kakawaya. You needed something. Mamalin said, have someone go fetch my grandson, Kush, and tell his mother he need him for a few days. We gotta go to Lake Providence together. Valley said, yes, ma'am. She looked at Valley, if you keep yes, ma'aming me. Me and you gonna fight with your ugly ass. Valley smiled, well, what all do you need for your trip? I'll get some of the help to pack up a wagon for ya. Mamalin said. Yeah, damn. Okay. I do need some stuff whipped up, you're always a step ahead of me old man. I need. Scratching her head, give me about 6 dozen eggs, a case of chicken, 2 cases of fish, and alpaca, butchered up nice and pretty like. Bring me a vegetable case filled with okra, tomato, onion, and things like that there. She shook her head and said to herself, that should do it. Valley walked off and told a few men what she needed, and they rushed off. By this time, Kush was 14, and had less than a month, before he turned 15. He was a bright, a handsome young man. His lock were on his shoulder, he had read the Torah over 40 times, and he would often visit his grandmother. During this time, a minor conflict was brewing up between the Wakatilian and the Anacata over the Mississippi Bridge. The Anacata were trying to charge a very high toll to cross it. Samuel had gathered up 5 to the Wakatilian and had been gone for months, occasionally returning for a day or two. Cush was walking up to Mamaline's house. Hey, you. What you walking for? Did he not say to make haste? I'm trying to get to Lake Providence before Christmas, and it's May. If you don't hurry your ASS up, you got everybody waiting on your ASS. Mamaline shouted. Cush started running. Yes ma'am. Looking at Valley while pointing at Cush, you see. Et quand calme ma'am. Your all ASS can't. Valley smiled. Yes ma'am. Mamaline logged and quickly frowned. AIEL. Ima. Knock your ASS out one of these days. Keep playing with me, just keep playing with me. By that time, Cush had jumped on the wagon and she shouted to the seahorse pulling her wagon, get up. What's the matter, baby? Cush looked up at her. Ain't nothing go wrong, Mamaline. She stared at him. Do you know who you're talking to? Cush smiled because Mamaline had dead gift. At times, no one enjoyed being around her because she felt their emotion her own, and she knew when you were lying. So, if you didn't want her to know something, you simply just didn't go around her. However, even that wouldn't work, she would come looking for you and tell you how she felt your presence, whether it was happy or sad, she knew it. Yes, Mamaline, Cush said. He paused. There's this girl. She interrupted him. He knew it, he knew it. Embarrassed, he said, no, Mamaline, she had to move to Lake Providence, cause her father gone during this Mississippi Bridge conflict, and her mother had to take care of her mother, cause her grandfather gone a well. Mamaline said, son, love is strange, yet a powerful thing. One of our ancestors was so much in love that he waited for nearly 35 years to marry the love of his life, at the ripe age of 55. They had their only child, Justine. Mamaline saw he was still embarrassed, and left it at that. 30 minutes had passed, and they were heading north to the bend on Highway 65. Mamaline and Cush had a trivia game they played when they were together from time to time, and she loved how well he played her favorite game. Who was Joseph Chatoyer? Mamaline asked. Cush said. The Caribbean leader of the First and Second Carib War. Mamaline shook her head, and made a funny look. What years? Cush shook his head. 1769-1796. Mamaline said, oh wrong. 1797, Cush said, by 1 year. Mamaline said. Almost doesn't count. Cush said. Okay, Tupac Shakur. Mamaline quickly said, born, le San Parish Crook, on June 16, 1971, died September 13, 1996, also known by his stage names Tupac and Macaulay. He had several family members of the Black Panthers, Mutulu Shakur, his stepfather, Assata Shakur, his stepaunt. Billy Garland was his biological father, and Afeni Shakur was his mother, born Alice Faye Williams, January 10, 1947 till May 2, 2016, she was also an American activist. Cush smiled, good, gracious. That's not even the question Mamaline. You just took off. The question is, what album was the of America's Most Wanted on? Mamaline said, All Eyes on Me, 1996. Then she said while she was shaking as if she was singing and dancing. And nothing but a gangster party. They both started logging. They played the game for a while, and then Cush talked about his grandfather. This thing they are doing in Mississippi is getting worse. I think they are trying to start a war or something. Mamalin turned and said to Kush, Samel is alright, I see him and your father logging and joking around with some of his friends. They are guarding the west side of the bridge now. He is going to be alright. Sabaoth got him covered, and bezid, it's not his time, no time soon, anyway. Samel is a mighty man around here and, when it comes to fighting, he can hold his own. Everyone within Samel's reach is enlightened. He here tell it you got skill too. But that is Samel doing, he is teaching you everything he knows because you have to join the military for 2 years. That is mandatory for everyone. It always amazed Kush at Mamalin's gift I turned to her, thanks, Mamalin. Pop and Dandaddy have been teaching me ever since I can remember, I just miss them. Shaking her head, no problem baby. Worries how me and my family came here, Mamalin explained. We were sent here because of Abuxigain. Kush interrupted, Abuxigain. Dandaddy never finished his story. Mamalin looked at Kush, where did they stop? Kush looked up and talked to himself, and had a look of confusion. Well, they were reading to Tucson and, hold on, Mamalin. Abuxigain wasn't born yet, I don't think he was even a child when all this happened. Mamalin interrupted, now, child, I don't really know many of the details about how they got there, I know about when they got there. You see, I love stories of love, and those are the ones I remember the best. Kush got excited, tell me one of your stories. Mamalin shook her head, but it was more of a sigh-off. Release, well, it's a long story, and I'll tell you when we get back so I can relax and explain everything, but I can tell you a short love story, that I was finna tell you when we were back there, but you got all embarrassed about your little girlfriend. Kush began blushing as she continued. This is a story of our bloodline almost didn't make it. It's because of that word called, love, me and you are here today. Mamalin gave Kush the ring. I got to put something on my stomach first. Here, you take this for a minute while I fix US scent it. US hungry. Kush replied, yes ma'am, she grabs a loaf of homemade wheat bread, some tuna, celery, and added some mayonnaise, look like someone didn't bu this mayo up. Valley, that man is a damn slob, can't clean up nothing, and act like he can't put up nothing either. What is a few steps to put this in the icebox? If this mayo done gone bad. Mamalin looked at the jar careful, but it still look good, I think. Add a small amount of mustard and she whips them up some sandwich. Let Mamalin tell you of a beautiful love story. Everyone knew Mamalin loved to tell stories of love and determination. It was part of her gift, and she enjoyed it. She placed the condiment in some ice and handed Kush a tuna fish sandwich saying, this is base of a true story. It actually happened. Rubbing her on with her finger. Where do we start? Well, about 1200 years ago, or so I guess, back in 1992, when Ajani, our ancestor, most people knew him as Azanga, when his firstborn son was born, named Justin. You see her descendant, in which her bloodline flows, had the same name as his brother after he died at age 26 of sickle cell anemia, back in a time when marriage was a complicated thing for people of color. Slavery had ended about 120 years or so. Jim Crow laws were still in effect, but women were given education, and men, well, not so much. There was a great division, but this was a well-thought-out plan by the majority, and they started separating US without US knowing it. The women became the breadwinner. And men well again, they were being rejected for not being the provider of the household. A well-thought-out plan, if I must say so, myself. Or Men were being effeminized and incarcerated with lengthy sentence, while our women became masculine and were allowed to advance globally. The government created a wedge between the two. So, back then, no one saw anything coming regarding the mind game and manipulation they did to our people, until it was too late. They called the few who saw it, and spoke up while it was happening, conspiracy theorist. Mama Lynn stopped the wagon. Whoa, she said as the horse came to a complete stop. Looking at Kush, in any other country in this world, people can go back century intergenealogy, and you couldn't shame them for having blonde hair and blue eyes, but they used stuff like that, too. Shame us you see, in these other countries, their genealogy was written in legal books by their family and government, their birth, children, and marriage. You might have had a relative or two who were no good, but you still had a sense of pride about your family. Oh, but no tear. They shame us for everything, for having dark skin, woolly hair, or being ashy. But they stole our culture, and made it their. Giddy up. Mama Lynn shouted to the horse as she continued, but I was saying before. Dazinga lived during this time frame. He had 2 girls and 2 boys, and both boys were named Justin. One boy, by a woman who despised him, that is the one that died, and by another one, his long lost love, Deck. However, he will get to that soon. Now, our ancestor wasn't a bad guy, he had moved to Atlanta, Georgia, after serving in the military to pursue a career à songwriter. Too, was a great poet well. In those days, they paid you good money to write song. She smiled, and called it. Petri in motion, during that time, we had president, nation with military units, and you had to parent and mortgage. Kush had a funny look on his face. Mama Lynn smiled, ILL explained it too late, but we had an entirely different world back then. Anyway, he experienced significant difficulty in life, a matter of fact, because we do have some time. Why on earth did Dazinga move there? One may ask. Kush said, he didn't ask you that, Mama Leon. Mama Leon looked at Kush, boyish, and let me tell you my story. Why on earth did Dazinga move there? One may ask. Mama Leon looked over at Kush, and smiled as she continued, Sabaoth destined it. Before joining the military, he lived in Shreveport, Louisiana, because his mother worked as a civilian for the armed service. After he left the military, he returned, but nothing had changed with racism, and the like of it. He was a part of a spiritual community dedicated to Sabaoth led by the great prophetess Akelammelech. Kush smiled, oh, he heard of her. Mama Leon gave Kush a look again and he smiled again, and me said, and love this. Small community with Akelammelech when he returned, but things had gotten worse since he left. Many of the people in the community would listen to his many adventures in the army, and after a while we fed up also about the injustice against our people, and they wanted to see the world outside of Louisiana.